Welcome back to another episode of Cappuccino Chat. This time we're talking about what kind of camera or cameras do you need for your video marketing. All right, so this time in our series on video marketing, we're talking about the camera or cameras, depending upon what you're doing. So let me preface this a little bit with, right now the camera that I'm using is stationary. So the way I've designed my office and my setup is for a stationary camera. I don't go out in the field and do a lot of camera views. I'm not doing a lot of motion shots and things like that. So like we talked about in the previous episode, you really need to determine where you're going to be filming and if you're filming in different locations. So with that said, I only film in this one primary location. Not to say that I can't film elsewhere, but the choice I made in my camera was done because I'm going to be stationary. I'm also not needing autofocus on the fly. So I'm not doing a lot of movement in my videos. I'm doing more interview style or just either with myself or with guests. So we're not doing a lot of movement. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to raise my hand here for you and you'll see. So what's going to happen is my hand gets out of focus, but I'm still in focus because that's what was focused on initially. So with a autofocus camera where maybe you're showing off product or doing a lot of movement, different distances from your camera, you're going to want to choose a camera that has that real-time autofocus capabilities. Now, some are better at it than others, but you're going to want to choose that. We're also going to talk about, when we talk about cameras, is using it like I use this one, not only for recording my videos, but for any of my web conferencing stuff. So when my Zoom calls, my Teams calls, I'm using my same camera. So I get the better camera view, better picture quality, better microphone, all that kind of good stuff, because I've using basically my very expensive camera as a webcam along with that. So I'm using it multiple different ways. So when choosing a camera that you are going to want to use as a webcam for doing live streaming, recording out to a computer, you're going to want to make sure that it supports what's called a clean output, HDMI clean output. What that means is if you're used to looking at the back of your camera, you see all those gauges and dials and different information on the display about shutter speed and ISO and all that stuff. Well, you don't want that coming through on the feed. So right now I've got that turned off on my camera so that when it's filming me, you're not seeing that information. So that's very important if you're going to be using it as a webcam or to do recordings like this where I'm recording to my computer and not directly to a SD card or a hard drive. You're going to want to make sure you have that clean HDMI out. Now, some manufacturers don't support it natively on all their cameras. I know Canon doesn't support it on all of theirs, so you got to be careful with that. There are hacks and ways around it, but you need to be careful with that. So let's just kind of get into what I got. So I went with the Blackmagic 6K. Now, the reason I went with this camera, one is the price had just fallen from its original price tag. It dropped $500. So I got 6K resolution. So I can record at up to 6K on it if I wanted to. So I kind of future-proofed my investment in doing this. So it also has some other features on it that I liked. I didn't need the autofocus because I'm doing this way. Some of the lens options, I can go with some very good Canon lenses. Canon does have, the Canon mount, I should say, has some very good lenses. We'll talk about lenses in the next episode. And the why I went with the one I did. As you can see, my background is blurry, but I'm in focus. Whereas if you're used to seeing your webcam, everything is in focus, and that, gives you a different look, if you will. So I went with this camera because the lens that everybody was talking about, that you kind of like the must-have lens, was kind of better fit for the Canon mount. So that's another reason I went the way I did. Future proofing, like I mentioned. I can plug in an XLR microphone. So I have a microphone here just out of frame that plugs in via a mini XLR. So and it powers that microphone. So I can use a boom type microphone in my videos. And this camera has that output for input for it. It can be plugged in to an AC power source. So this one came with an AC power. I didn't have to get what's called a dummy battery. So again, if you're going to be doing any kind of streaming or using it for video calls, you're going to want to make sure you don't have to rely on the battery, because you can drain your batteries pretty quick, and then you don't want to run out of battery right in the middle of recording something and need to restart or whatever. So you either want to get a dummy battery for it, which just what it sounds like. It's not a battery. It plugs in and then has an AC adapter that then will power your camera indefinitely. This one has AC input, so I didn't need to get that and have that expense. So that's another reason I went with it. But I don't need autofocus. So this is a cinema type camera. It can do, people shoot movies on these and different things like that. But I got it more because I wanted it for the interview style camera. Again, I'm not autofocused, and it integrates with some of the other pieces I have in my total kit, being my switcher and what converts the HDMI signal to my computer. So as I mentioned, I bought a 6K camera, so that's one up from 4K, and you think of your TVs. But I'm only recording at 1080p 60 frames, so it's downsampling. So most of the time you won't upload in 4K or 6K. It's just no reason for it, but there are instances for it. So if I wasn't recording straight to my computer with this capture card the way I have it, I could record straight to hard drive at 6K. What that allows me to do is zoom in on things without it starting to pixelate, like when you zoom in on your security cameras or anything like that, where you start to see those dots and those pixels. With the 6K, I can actually crop in, zoom in to 4K or 1020 much tighter without losing quality. So again, I can do a wide view and do different things, but then when I go to put the video together, I can crop in without losing picture quality and that sort of thing. So when it comes to cameras, again, you got to kind of think about, or cameras, right? So my setup, I'm ready to do multiple cameras. The switcher I've chosen can support up to 4. We'll talk about some of the other items you need later on, and I'll mention my switcher, but I can integrate that. So let's say you were doing a product type demo. You might have this face-to-face camera view, and you might have a top-down view, right? Where you're seeing something on a table. Maybe you're explaining it. Maybe you're taking it apart, putting it back together, and you need that other view. A lot of time with streamers, like in radio shows and YouTube videos, you'll see behind the scenes kind of cameras, like one camera maybe behind them showing the view that they're seeing. So you can switch back and forth on those different views. So you may have a reason for multiple cameras. When you're doing that, you can mix and match cameras, but just so you don't have to do so much post-production work in your software that you're going to use, you're going to want to probably stick with the same manufacturer, at least. Maybe not the same model, but at least the same manufacturer, because everyone does their color matching and stuff just a little bit different, and you're going to want to kind of stick with that just to make your life easier. We're not all, this isn't Hollywood. We're not, doing this 24/7 for our job or anything. We're trying to make these videos, so we want to make sure things are as simple as possible. So for this, I would stick with, I like the Blackmagic. You can take a look at those for sure. But you might probably also want to look at the Sony line. So the Sony 6000 line, I think you still get the 6100, 6400, the 6600s. Those are all very good cameras. You can get the clean HDMI out. Good lens options. Again, we'll get into lenses in the next video, but they take very good lenses. The same manufacturer I'm using makes lenses for those that are called prime lenses, and we will talk about that in the next video, I promise. But on cameras, they're very small, lightweight, so you can hang them from the ceiling, from boom arms. Very easy to carry with you if you needed to. Again, to go out and do maybe some outside shots or movement shots. Fits in gimbals very nice. So again, the Sony line would be something I would look at. Or again, if you've got a DSLR that you've got, make it work. Give it a try, see what you've got. A lot of them have HDMI out already, so you just need that capture card, which again, we'll talk about in a later video. But you can always try what you got if you don't want to buy new and get into it. You'd be surprised what you can get to. And nowadays with the new cameras on cell phones and stuff, using software I started with the iPhones. These cameras are phenomenal, and you can do a lot with them just starting there. One of the nice things now is with the setup I have, I could actually use my iPhone as a secondary camera, right? So I would have this as my main view, and I could have my cell phone mounted somewhere else, connected up as a secondary view for myself, and I could switch back and forth and have that in place. So these are just different things to think about when you're setting up your camera. Another piece, as I mentioned, mine takes a XLR microphone. So the kind of microphone I wanted for doing interviews where I'm not wearing a lapel mic. I can set up a lapel mic if I need to. I have that option, of course. But I wanted a kind of a permanent mount arm on my microphone. And we will also talk about audio in a future episode. But I wanted that functionality. A lot of cameras take a separate, just a 3.5 millimeter input, which then you got to have battery powered for that microphone to pick things up if you want everything into one feed. So why is one feed nice? You don't want things getting out of sync. So when your lips are moving, you don't want different words getting out of sync. So everything goes into the camera processes it, brings it out one feed. One feed goes into my computer. I record audio and video at the same time, and it works great. I don't have to worry about it. You can always record audio separately. A lot of people do that where they'll have a secondary audio recorder where it's just recording audio. Then they record their video separately to a separate hard drive. And then in post-production, they combine the two together to be one seamless video. You can do that. In my mind, it takes more time to do that, and I didn't want that. I can actually, once I get all the recording done, I can edit and upload a video pretty fast. I would say within 30 minutes, I can edit the video, add what I need to add, and get it uploaded to YouTube and online for viewers to watch. So it all depends on what you want to do and in your post-production and with your software. Again, I'm not getting crazy, as you can tell with what I'm doing here, but you can do all sorts of very cool things with your software and get crazy with that. So when you're doing that kind of stuff, bringing in the audio, bringing in the video isn't very difficult. It just adds more time to it, and I didn't want that time. So things to think about with your camera or cameras. Again, if you're going with multiple cameras, I would stick with the same manufacturer just to make things easier. 2, think about future proofing. So don't necessarily get the cheapest thing just to get you by. Think about what you're going to be doing. Kind of use it going forward. Again, the Sony line, they're very good. They're 4K cameras for the most part on the 6000 series. They all share the same lenses, which is very nice when you stick with the same manufacturer. You don't have that as well because lenses can get very, very expensive. So those are two very things. Audio is important. You know, think about how you're going to connect the audio. Are you going to be mobile and need a better mic connected to it? So then that 3.5 connector works great. Or are you going to be stationary like myself and you can use the XLR output? I always want to combine everything to what you have into the clean HDMI. So that's another item to look for, is that clean HDMI out. If you're going to be recording to a computer or some other kind of capture device and not on the camera itself. If you're capturing to the camera itself, that clean HDMI out is not very important. But when making the investments in these high-end cameras, I would definitely look at streaming with your camera for like your Zoom calls and stuff, because these cameras make a big difference in quality, and I would kind of reuse some of my investment. So those are the things to look for in your camera or cameras. How you're going to use them, how are they set up, stick with the same manufacturer, audio, clean HDMI out. I know that was a lot to cover. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me, either calling the office at 760-770-5200, or you can email me directly. I'd be glad to talk with you about setting up some video marketing for your business. Until next time.